Hi, Ginger fans, back again. Moving on with Wallflowers, track by track. So, Pearls and Swine is the next one. And the title, I love the title of this. Actually, I would just take a quick moment to tell you. I remember the very first time I ever heard the phrase. It was Pearls before Swine is the phrase I heard. I was back with, like, I was a teenager, and I heard my uncle describing a concert he'd been at. He'd been seeing the jazz guitarist Martin Taylor, and he'd seen him playing in like a sort of like an upstairs lounge of a bar type thing. And I actually seen Martin Taylor live myself as well, a couple of years after this story. But anyway, he talked about being there and seeing him performing this, mind-blowing jazz guitar stuff. And somebody in the audience shouted out, unironically, "Do you know Sweet Home Alabama?" And then he described that, it's like Pearls before Swine. And I was like, what does Pearls before Swine mean? And then he explained it. I was like, I like that. So Pearls and Swine, looking forward to this one. So let's see what it's all about. After 3, 2, 1, go. Wow. So I was recently talking about the experience of time when listening to music, um, and is that the longest song so far? I can't remember the length of Vortex. I think is Vortex similar sort of length. I listened to Vortex a while ago, obviously when it came out, but other than possibly Vortex, this is the longest one on the album so far, and yet that one felt like it passed quicker than some of the shorter songs. It's unusual that maybe I'm kind of alone with that. You can let me know. Do you guys think about that when you're listening? Certainly, whenever it came to the end of the song, I felt like there was more to come. Whereas with some of the other ones, I kind of felt like they were going to wrap up, and then we would come into a new riff, and yet it's still a short song. So kind of unusual that to me. So something that really jumped out to me on that one was that sort of extended breakdown where the mood changed. We went from pretty intense songs to open the album, and although there's still massive intensity going on in this song, it was kind of nice that they did allow us like the equivalent of a breather. If you're listening to the thing from the album from the beginning to the end, it is important, especially with music like this, that if it's just a full-on assault, the listener's going to get tired to some degree. So I feel like that was welcome there to just sit in that groove and just allow the space and the atmosphere to take over. That was probably the highlight of this song to me. Now, whenever I go back and listen to it, there'll be other things that jump out, obviously, when I'm sort of breaking it down. That was the big thing I took from that song. Okay, so there's a nice effect going on there in the guitar. I'm not entirely sure what's giving it that sort of electronic synthy kind of sound. It's an undercurrent. The raw guitar sound is the primary thing I'm hearing, but there's something in the background with the slides and so on. It definitely sounds like it's manipulated somehow. It almost reminds me of like a whammy pedal. There's something like a gliding kind of sound away. It's low down. Like it sounds like an extra layer of guitar playing the same thing. It's definitely nice to hear the guitar with a lot of space, and they've decided to use some effects on there like delay, reverb, and so on to get this sort of bigger sound. Obviously, because of the nature of those tracks that have come before this, with them being intense and with them being so heavy and direct and ornate with everything, all those delays and reverbs really would just get in the way of the mix. So something I particularly enjoy is not only does it have the delay on it, but you notice it's something I learned whenever you go into like a recording studio. You don't just press your delay switch. You really need to take the time to make sure your delay is set right, so that it's within the BPM of the song. So if you listen carefully to hear the sort of delayed notes in the background, you can hear they're in time with one another. But make sure that the rhythmic aspect of the delay is still in time. It might sound like a fairly obvious thing to do whenever you point it out, but I think years ago, I remember whenever I first went in, just put delay on. It's like, you need to get the top tempo on there to really make the use of that. So I thought I'd mention that because that might not be clear to everybody listening to that at the beginning. That, even at the very start, it almost puts me in mind of Tom Morello. There's just something, he obviously used the whammy pedal a lot. It's not overtly, over the top Tom Morello Rage Against the Machine stuff, but there's a particular timbre or tone off the guitar there that it sounds unnatural that I like. main thing that jumps out to me in that section is the use of triplets again, especially in the double kick. Dun, 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 everything in threes. Loving the rhythmic aspect of the vocals in this in particular. So apart from the drumming, the other sort of heavy rhythmic element that I'm getting from that is the vocals. Swine are unable to apprehend. You know, she's finding that da 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 bam bam bam. You know, so Tatiana really has the groove down on this. Many tried, many died. Swine are unable to apprehend. Burnstings of a human heart. There's no teacher in this world who would dare to teach a piglet how I can smartly use a word to express its feelings. It's just me, or am I getting more Mike Patton vibes in the vocals? Also, that descending run, it's like a heavier version of Faith No More. I really like the drum beat in this, that sort of cymbal in there. Vocals. Lovely displacement of the snare on that, isn't there? You know, it's not just keeping the snare in the same place. There's no teacher in this world who would dare to teach a piglet how I can smartly use. Getting sort of grungy elements again from that guitar riff. Down, down, down. Got that sort of early 90s sludgy kind of Soundgarden-y kind of feel again. Teach a piglet how I can smartly use a word to express its feelings. So through this, so the dumb. Don't let this age long time come out. It's a beautiful chord, that dun, da, dum. I love the fact that he is using that every time. So remember we've talked about before where whenever they get something that they don't just necessarily repeat it. I honestly think that's just a case of the chef with the ingredients. You know, too much of one thing would spoil the dish. So you know, everything needs to be sort of arranged in the right way so that, you know, there's not one thing it's the start of the show. I guess unless it's one of those dishes where there's only a couple of elements to it, where you want the main thing to be like, do you know what I mean? Like a really good steak. The steak is the start of the show, isn't it? Well, I'm talking about food. Possibly because I'm hungry. It's kind of getting to lunchtime here, so I'm starting to think about steak. Anyway, all right, keep track, John. Yeah, when you refer to yourself in the third person, it's not usually a good sign. Maybe time for a smoke pretty soon. Okay, so the thing I really enjoy is that that's such a lovely series of notes. There's only 4 notes in that. Da 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 da. It's a beautiful sound that I haven't really heard in any of the other songs. I love the fact that he's pushing that. So rather than going, okay, let's change that, the fact that he's keeping it consistent, it's like they know when to keep something consistent and when not to. You know, it's just the decision-making process in the band is so sophisticated. To me, that just shows how versatile they are in terms of understanding music. You know, there's definitely not a formula being put into this. I mean, there is, don't get me wrong, there's obviously a formula to the music, but it's not like one size fits all. I love the fact that, you know, the band will repeat phrases whenever the phrase has something particularly special about it. And that bit there, my ear's drawn straight to those 4 notes on the guitar. Everything else is cool, like, but I can't help but wait for that to come back in again. And it's so satisfying to hear it every time. To express its feelings, so through this, so the dumb. Don't let this age long time come out. Beautiful singing, obviously. Love the little thing that Vlad has going on, and is a sort of consistent thing he has in that groove with the sort of cymbal flourishes, which sort of make that groove kind of unique sounding, don't they? And then again, Eugene, just, it's like, I'm still here too, you know, don't forget. Eugene is such a tasteful bassist. You know, he's happy to be like part of the guitar. You know, him and the guitar are linked. And then he just finds the space where the bass just becomes a wee bit more of the star of the show. And those parts, you know, he's so tasteful.
To a cloud, to a grave. With all your kind, gentle heart.
Those lovely slides in there, beautiful.
Gentle heart, you came to people full of light. You came to those who were not like you. Promise.
Love those palm mutes. To hear you did it on the first one, not on the second one. It was all open, same notes but open played. And then the third one we get to jin, 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 jin. I was kind of waiting on that, so I really like that.
To those who were not like you, promising to love them too,
Nice harmonies there, and the vocals at the very end there, a beautiful chord.
love them too.
Lovely. Love that real military feel on the snare. What is that in there? It's not even a splash, it's like a little bell. So another aspect of this song was I noticed in different parts where the drums seem to, you know, to reinforce the stops. You know, even if the guitar or the bass decides to, you know, he's not tempted to just keep playing through that. I love the way he stops and we get this sort of jarring effect in music. In that place, he was doing it on the toms. I think there was something later on in this song where he was like, was it cymbal chokes or something he was doing where we get these sort of interruptions. Obviously the groove, you can still keep nodding along to it, but I love the way everything kind of tightly stops together. That fill has to be one of the best fills on the album so far. I'm going to take that back in again. As the end of the slapping here, I'm getting some of the more aggressive sort of sounds on the bass. Sounds like there's a wee bit of slapping going on here.
When sensing you're a man of virtues, they boil inside with hate. Endowing you with dark
Again, the snare displacement, you know, despite the beat sort of being there, I love the way that he's syncopating the snare beat. It's still within a kind of 4/4 construct, and the guitar riff is, you know, kind of straight. The fact that Vlad is like, well, let's just keep that snare slightly off there, you know, it still gives an element of disorientation. So again, not sticking with that formula. Now he's into the straight beat, which is, I guess, what we need. The singing's come back in again, so he's creating more support by putting the snare back on the beat.
The vicious
Love all those open cymbals ringing, it's probably just a hi-hat or whatever, but you can hear all those cymbals just ringing out in the background. It's so ethereal sounding, the drums. Such a musical drummer, there's jokes everywhere about drummers, I'm not going to make fun of drummers because drummers are sometimes the most talented member of the band. I really love the musicality that Vlad has. In order to sort of create ethereal, atmospheric kind of moments like that, you could understand maybe using the synthesizer or some sort of spacey kind of pad to create that. But, they're doing it within the sort of natural instruments that they're playing. You're not using any of those sort of outside sources. I love the fact that it's the cymbals that are creating that.
The vicious finds the righteous, and all life can admit his fault. Can you explain why you are bothered with coming cowards thought?
Beautiful vocals in there, a really emotional singing from Tatiana.
With coming cowards thought. Don't open up to everyone. Don't run for every stranger. Inviting them to touch your mind. Make sure you smell no danger. Casting pearls before swine. You're such a thankless.
Okay, so he doesn't do it as often as I thought he had done that first time, but here he is. Getting the odd little, I heard two in there anyway. There's a bit of space between each one, but the time in those, like, momentary just silence in the drums. The guitar is obviously doing it more often. Really like that.
Don't open up to everyone. Don't run for every stranger.
I kind of pointed out in every video now there, but I'm trying to say about that polyrhythm being pervasive. I mean, it feels like it's been in nearly every song that we've listened to here. Da 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 da.
To everyone. Don't run for every stranger. Inviting them to touch your mind. Make sure you smell no danger. Casting pearls before swine. You're such a thankless job. Let's cast invisible grenades. Mindfulness instead.
I love that chord progression there. I know the rhythmic stuff is probably the predominant thing in there with all those stabs and the syncopation, but if you listen to the actual chord progression, there's something really pained about that. It's beautiful.
Casting pearls before swine. You're such a thankless job. Let's cast invisible grenades. Mindfulness instead. Persuade.
So another little element in there is we've talked about in previous songs is this moving between 4 and 3. Although so far there haven't been many sort of what I would call odd time signatures, anything like 5, 7, 9 and so on, 11. They have enjoyed being able to play about with 4 into 3, into 4 into 3. And you can hear in that little section there that we're definitely moving into 2 bars of 3. This is on track to be one of the albums of the year. Let's be honest. This is so refreshing, this stuff. Really loving this. Thanks for watching. See you next time.